Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I thought I would answer for you guys a question that I got asked in some of the comments because I've made videos explaining why I do sumo deadlifts, why I prescribe them for more advanced lifters, things like that, and someone had said, hey, why don't you have them in your novice program? And if I put them in your novice program, can I change the volume? And the answer is no. Unless you wanted to do like 6 singles instead of a 5 rep set. All right, you might be able to squeeze out one more moderately heavy rep every week, like one. But let's come over to the point. There's a reason I don't put sumo deadlifts in as a default lift for novice lifters. Number one, they don't have the mobility usually to do them. Sumo deadlift requires more mobility in your hips and things like that. It requires a greater range of motion and mobility in many cases than a lot of novice lifters actually have. And if you can't sit down on a 12-inch box and squat, you can't do a sumo deadlift. And when I say a 12-inch box, I mean literally a 12-inch box, which is what I tell people to box squat on. It kind of comes back to the videos I've made about box squat depth. You can't get a lot of people when you prescribe a box squat to them to actually go to a 12-inch box. They'll sit on a 20-inch box, an 18-inch box, a 24-inch box. They'll sit on anything but a 12-inch because people who haven't done it, when they sit on something that is only 12 inches tall, they freak out. They freak out. If you can't squat and box squat on a 12-inch box and stand back up correctly, you're probably not going to be able to perform the sumo deadlift. And it's not because your hips and glutes and everything even go that low, because they usually don't. It's the issue of you don't have the mobility and strength out of the bottom to actually achieve it. That's usually the problem. And if you don't have that sort of mobility, you're just not going to be able to sumo deadlift. Then we get over to the point of a lot of the benefits of the sumo itself. A big part of it's recovery. A big part of it is less loading, less shear on the spine. Right? We put less shear stress on the lumbar region. But is that really an issue for most novices, healthy novices? I'm going to say no, because we're dealing with total overload, and it's usually pointed out that we can do more total training volume every week on a sumo deadlift. A lot of coaches have noticed this. I've noted this. We recover from it easier. Now, what's been funny is that, again, I've had people say, oh, does that mean I could replace the single set of conventional with 3 sets of sumo in, say, one of your novice programs? And it's like, no. It doesn't triple the amount of volume you can get away with. It's a slight increase. It's a very slight increase. We're talking about something like, if you're doing multiple sets and you can recover from it, we're talking about like a 1 extra set. It's fairly minor. It's fairly minor. It's usually when we combine it with the synergy of something like a box squat that's easier to recover from, combined with a sumo deadlift that's easier to recover from, versus the classic versions, the lifts. So we create a whole synergy with that. Those lifts tend to complement each other in regards to that. So if you're doing normal back squatting and you're not particularly strong yet and you're not generating large amounts of overload on the conventional deadlift to the point to where it is a major recovery issue, and that little minor things that will enhance recovery are going to add up, you're not really going to get those benefits from the sumo deadlift. It's just so small that the workload differences for a novice lifter just aren't going to be enough to matter. They're just not going to be enough to matter. And so therefore, there's no real harm in teaching them a normal conventional deadlift. There really isn't, particularly as a cookie cutter template type thing. And the conventional deadlift is easier to learn, in my opinion. It is easier for a person to learn the conventional deadlift. I've seen Ripto and other people make single videos on it and show that you can basically, in 5 minutes, coach a new lifter to perform a basically perfect deadlift in person. It takes 5 minutes to learn how to perform a conventional deadlift that would be good enough form for most guys to get well past 400 pounds, right? Without learning any new form beyond what they learned in that first 5 minutes. they'll be able to eventually safely build up to and perform at least 400 pounds, right? That's normal. You don't need any special technique or fine tuning beyond what you can learn in 5 minutes. It's just really easy to learn. Hits all the muscles in the body. It's a basic exercise. But no, the conventional deadlift is extremely easy to learn and to teach. To teach someone in person, it takes minutes to give them a basically close to perfect deadlift. So the sumo takes more teaching, so it makes it a little more complicated for the novice. Then we kind of come over to the whole point with the box squats. Sumo deadlifting has a synergy with box squats. That's a lot of our benefit of it also, at least in my opinion. They work extremely well together. Well, if you can't get novices to box squat, how are you going to get them to sumo deadlift? As far as prescribing it. Because here's what's going to happen. You're going to tell them that, and you will explain to them that if you can build your sumo deadlift off the box squat. In other words, there's a direct carryover. If you add 10 pounds of strength to your deep box squat, your sumo deadlift is probably going to go up 10 pounds. And I don't mean because, the sumo deadlift's being trained to go up 10 pounds. No, I mean if you came over and just worked your technique and then tested a max on the sumo deadlift, you go train the box squat till it goes up 10 pounds, your max is probably going to go up 10 pounds on the sumo deadlift without having done any actual reps or training on it in between. It just will, if you know how to perform it already. It's a direct carryover. And then they both have reduced recovery. They're easy to recover from. Well, that sounds great. And so then what do? You tell the novice that, and then they're going to try to jump on a box, and they're going to get on an 18-inch box. They're going to sit down on a bench, and they're going to half squat on a box 100 pounds more than they can actually technically box squat. And they're going to have far less recovery. They're going to do a high box. They're going to compress their spine with a heavier weight than their 1 rep max, rep after rep after rep. It's going to reduce the recovery, and then they're going to think that it'll carry over to their sumo deadlift, and it won't. It won't give the same carryover. It won't give the benefits of box squatting, and it's going to be harder to recover from. So they'll try to mix the two when the real benefit would have come of correctly mixing the two. So here's usually what I would say to people. If you don't have someone who is in a situation in a program to where they can correctly box squat, you may not get all the benefits that I ascribe to the sumo. And I'm not saying they can't. I'm not saying that you can't take a novice lifter who has the mobility to do it. I'm not saying you can't do that. If someone has the mobility to do it and they can perform it correctly without me coaching them, because if you can't coach someone, then it's a novice following your channel, listening to your advice. So I'm just going to do this. Well, if you have to be taught how to do the sumo, it's going to be a problem. You would have been better off with a conventional. It's just easier to learn. So if they're not going to box squat, then they might as well just do the conventional deadlift. It's fine. But they can, if they can perform the sumo correctly and they don't need coaching on it, they have the mobility to do it, I'm fine with a novice plugging a basic template in that's supposed to be the conventional deadlift with them plugging in a sumo. But they need to understand that it's just being used as an alternative exercise. It's not really going to be better in that case for them. Meaning they haven't done anything in the training to get a real benefit from it. And what we would think of as the benefits of it, they're not really in a position to take advantage of yet. They're not in a position to take advantage of it. So it could be an alternative option for them, but it has its own set of drawbacks. So that's why I don't really prescribe it. If I were to prescribe a program that I knew novices would follow, yeah, I'd have them do deep boxes and sumo deadlifts. Problem is they're not going to follow it correctly. If you write it as a program and put it out online, and just assume that people are going to follow that correctly, they're not. They're not going to do it right. And therefore, it's not going to be a good program. And it's not because the program wasn't written well. It's that you didn't understand who was going to run it. and it's going to be uncoached people. You have to be able to coach people to get them onto a low box. People will not do it on their own. They won't do it because you tell them to. You have to make them do it as a coach. They won't do it. So you're not going to get all those benefits. You just can't write those sort of programs. People won't follow it correctly. All right, guys, so that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.